Hello and welcome to Standard Issue. Comedian, podcaster and winner of this year's Edinburgh Comedy Award, Amy Gledhill. Hello.
Hello.
I just kept our little pre-interview chat at the top, like really short, because I wanted to say congratulations and it seemed weird that I wasn't saying congratulations. But are you getting more used to it? Does it still feel like a shock to you, or is it settled in a bit more?
Genuinely still a huge shock. People ask if it's sort of sunk in yet, and I don't think it has. I think it sinks in for about 10 seconds at a time. So every now and again, I was driving to a gig and I went, oh, I've won the Perrier. And I'd never called it the Perrier before in my head. It'd been like the Edinburgh Comedy Award. When I called it the Perrier for the first time, I nearly swerved off the road. I couldn't believe it. What? So, yeah, I think it's absolutely bonkers. And I'm delighted, obviously, but I couldn't say that I've processed it.
It was actually a double whammy of an achievement for you, in as much as you directed your friend Chris Cantell's show, and that was also nominated for the main award.
And
I mean, it probably now seems somewhat insubstantial to actually winning the main award, but that's like 2 nominations in 1 year.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Feel very greedy with my nomination, actually. Want more. I was so proud of him. His show I thought was fantastic. We're in a double act. And so for us to do solo shows and both get nominated, it was the sort of dream that you daren't even whisper that to be an ambition because it feels so outrageous to be like, maybe we'll both get nominated individually, you know? We couldn't believe it. And when we got the phone call, we were separate. So you get a phone call to say you've been nominated from your PR or your agent or whatever. And we were separate. And they rang Chris. And Chris's first question was, has Amy got it? And my first question when they rang me was like, has Chris got it? They said, oh, congratulations, you've been nominated. And I went, oh, has Chris got it? And then as soon as they said Chris has got it, I burst into tears. I was in City Cafe, which is a very busy cafe in Edinburgh. And I immediately burst into tears. I was just like, I'm so proud of him. We were just in tears for each other. The rest of the fringe, really, was just over the moon. Couldn't believe it.
Oh, that's lovely. When I was a journalist, I got nominated for a number of awards that one of my best friends also got nominated for. And he won all of them. I mean, obviously it wasn't the Edinburgh Award. It wasn't that level. But I really enjoyed the ability to get magnanimous about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he won them, which meant somebody else didn't. Somebody I liked still won the award. It just wasn't me. But yeah, I got to feel very magnanimous. Certain kind of smugness came out of that, I think.
Yeah.
So that show, your show, Make Me Look Fit on the Poster, great name, is now touring. And by touring, I'm just looking at your dates. You are all over the shop. I didn't spot a date in Wales, but other than that, you are pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I know. We realised there wasn't a date in Wales. I did Bristol last night, and somebody had travelled from Swansea, and I was like, that's far. And she said, you're not doing Wales. And I was like, oh, gosh. And then I talked to the tour producer about it. I was like, what? And they're trying to get a date in Wales, and it hasn't worked out yet. Wales has not been forgotten.
Great.
It's just...
Wales would be pleased to know that. But yeah, you go to Belfast, you're up in Scotland a lot, you're all over. I'm going to come and see you at the Cambridge Junction if there are still tickets left. Does winning take the pressure off at all? Or does it put the pressure on at all?
I would say it maybe takes a little bit of the pressure off ticket sales, because I think you get such a boost. Even just being nominated, you get a boost. So that's one of the pressures is slightly relieved. But I will say, not all audience members, of course, but there is a slight vibe among some people who go, come on then, award winner. Show us your funny show.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no. I think when people's expectations are high, it's harder to make them laugh, you know?
Yeah.
There's a real fine balance, because if they think you're rubbish before you come on, if someone said, oh, I've seen her and I didn't like her, you have to win them round, and that's really hard. But equally, if they're being told, oh, she's absolutely fantastic, this is the best comedy show at the Edinburgh Fringe, they're like, was it? Okay, we'll see about that. So there's this sweet spot somewhere in the middle between having no confidence in you because maybe they don't know you or they've not seen you before, and having super high expectations where you need to prove yourself. There's a sweet spot. I would say only about 5% of the room has that mindset. So
Right,
it's manageable. Yeah.
Are you doing Hull? You must be doing Hull, surely.
I've done Hull.
You've done it already.
Yeah, I did it last week. And what I will say is I love playing Hull. Obviously, a hometown gig. The difficult thing is every single person that's disruptive or heckles or arrives late or gets up for a drink, honestly, I knew their first and second name. I was like, okay, well. And I think there's something about being familiar with the performer. People relax. They want to get involved. School friends. One of my oldest friends was there, front row, chatted all the way through, bless her. Didn't know it was not helping.
Yeah.
Tell him about this, tell him about that. It's like, oh no. You know, someone had heckled, do you remember me from school? Right. All the extended family that you only see at funerals, weddings, and my tour shows, they all come out. Oh my gosh. So it's the best place to gig in a lot of ways because it's so warm and there's so much energy there. But it can also be the hardest for a lot of reasons. Yeah, I loved it. And I got to play Hull Truck Theatre, which is a real big deal for me because it's somewhere I've always wanted to play off my own back. So that was really cool.
Excellent. The premise of Make Me Look Fit on the poster is so interesting. As someone who has done stand-up in the past, I feel like it's almost like a sort of a perfect capsule for so many people who go into stand-up, which is that you consider yourself to have self-confidence, but you don't consider yourself to have self-esteem. And that is so interesting because I think as someone who that quite well describes, it means that the disparity between how you see yourself and how the world sees you are so enormous that when you tell someone something about yourself, they don't really believe you. You don't think that. Tell me how you hit on that bit of alchemy.
So I think it probably came from going through a breakup in February and then kind of having to do that little bit of inner work on yourself and kind of going, how do I feel? How do I feel about how that went? What am I looking for? And kind of realising from talking to friends, if I describe what I'd want my next relationship to be or something like that, and they'll say, Amy, that's really the bare minimum. I think you should aim a bit higher. You know, it's like, well, I'd like it if they text me once a week. And they're like, no, I think maybe we try and aim a little bit higher. And then I was like, oh. And honestly, I didn't realise that my self-esteem was as low as it is until I started sort of digging around in this topic and having a think. Because I know I'm confident. God, not the most confident, but I know I can chat to people. Obviously, being up on stage, you need a certain type of confidence for that. But I would say a huge proportion of comedians, like you said yourself, we have this confidence, but self-esteem, oh my God, rock bottom. So I just found it a really interesting area to sort of pry into. And then I started looking back and kind of thinking, oh, right, so when this boy cheated on me and I still carried on going out with him, I wonder what was happening there. And then it's looking back and going, oh, that was because of low self-esteem and not thinking I deserved better. And then events like that give you lower self-esteem, and then you kind of go along and you can kind of trace it back and go, oh, look at this, how fascinating. I've learned a lot about myself writing a comedy show, which I didn't expect, to be honest, because I always start with what's funny and just like silly and daft. I really like big playful things. I like doing act outs, and I always start with that. And I never thought in a million years that I'd learn so much about myself, and it's been really genuinely really useful. And now I'm actually working on self-esteem and things like that, and I am feeling better. Like I'm noticing a change from writing a comedy show. Like, it's kind of blown my mind. It sort of came out of nowhere, really.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very existential thing to do, isn't it? To put a version of yourself out to the world and how truthful you are, and because you don't need to be truthful, but then you think what's funny is what's actually happened. You know what I mean? That is always the funniest thing.
Yeah,
and like I say, I never had the problem with the confidence of getting up and standing up and saying stuff. But if you asked me to write a list of all of the things that I thought were brilliant about myself, I would never come back to you.
Yeah, of course.
We just couldn't even be friends anymore if you'd asked me for that.
But it's so true. It's so true. And it's so prevalent. I think so many of us feel like this. This is why it's hard to write a CV. It's hard to write a dating profile.
Yeah.
When I started writing a dating profile for the first time, and you have to kind of be like, what am I like? The only thing is I felt confident about saying, which shouldn't go on a dating profile, is things like, I am hardworking. And it's like, okay, all right, but I'm sure I've got other qualities, but it's only things that where I feel like I can tangibly prove them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hardworking because I get up at this time and I start work and I finish work at this time. I know I'm hardworking. But to say that, to say with you, your whole chest that, I think I'm really kind or I'm really generous, it feels like, ugh, we're not allowed to say things like that about ourselves because it feels gross and big-headed and then people won't like you. But it's not. It's about saying them things for yourself and going, doing all right.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It is hard.
I mean, I don't think being a woman helps, to be honest. I know it's something that afflicts men, but I think it probably afflicts us much, much more. What did you do before, Amy?
Oh, a whole range of things. So before going professional with stand-up, the last job I had was working at the Crystal Maze Experience in Manchester.
With Kate McCabe?
With Kate McCabe, lovely Kate. Yes, love Kate. Also working at the Manchester Arena at the same time. And I didn't go back after the terrorist event. So I stopped doing that. That was the last bar job I had. I worked in the box office I worked in the box office of Manchester Arena, sort of like 9 to 5. And then I worked at the bar in Manchester Arena, 6 till midnight.
How did you fit gigging then?
Well, yeah. And I remember one day there was MMA fight or something like, there was some sort of fight going on that was being filmed for America. So it was starting later because of the time difference. And I remember doing my shift in the box office, getting on a bus to the countryside to do a gig in a pub, dying. It was awful. I think I got paid £25. I got the bus back, then went and did my bar shift, which finished at 6 a.m. And I remember walking back to my flat and I just was so tired. And where I used to live in Cheetham Hill, the quickest way from Manchester Arena to my flat was through the industrial estate, and there was a lot of sex workers, and I'd sort of see the same ones like most nights. So, we knew each other enough to sort of say hello. And on this particular morning when I was walking back, one of the sex workers was like, "Oh, God, are you all right? You look like you've had a tough day." And I was like, "Oh, no, I need to change my life. I need to change my life." Yeah, so done all sorts, really. Box factory, loads of bar jobs, loads of just minimum wage, 0 hours contracts.
And now the dream.
Now the dream.
Which includes 2 podcasts.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about both of them, but let's start with Northern News, which you do with Ian Smith.
Yeah.
I immediately wanted to talk to you about this because I also used to work for a local newspaper for years and years and years. I'm so sad they're gone for a lot of reasons. They do a lot of good in the world. But also, they also have these hilarious just snapshot of life out in the UK.
Yeah. So Northern News is myself and Ian. He's from Goole, which is in the north, and I'm from Hull. And we both live in London, and we both miss the local news stories. Like you say, they're such a lovely little glimpse into like the microcosm of the UK. And every episode, we look through northern papers. We find the bizarre stories, the weird stories, the funny stories. and we each bring a story to the table that the other one doesn't know what we've brought. So you bring a story and you tell them that story, and then each week we bring one from our hometowns as well. So there's always one from Hull, and then there'll be one from somewhere else in the north. And we have brilliant guests on who don't have to be northern. So we've had amazing guests who tell us about stories from their hometowns or where they grew up, or if they've been in the north, something that's happened to them there. And we've had, if we had David O'Doherty, Tim Key, John Kearns,
Casey Wicks, I listened to.
Just amazing. Sunil Patel. Oh, we just had so many really great, really funny guests, and we love it. I love it. It's just a great excuse to chat about the north, which is my favourite thing to do. And Ian's so funny. Ian's just a dream to work with. He's brilliant.
Well, I had a little route round on the Hull Daily Mail to see if I could find a story for you. And to be honest, it was quite a lot about parking.
Yep.
I did, however, come across this, which is East Yorkshire, it's not Hull, in The Guardian, which was actually yesterday. Unbelievable bit of timing.
Oh,
Headline,
okay.
Poison pen letters leave cloud of vitriol hanging over East Yorkshire village.
Oh my God, it's like that film.
It is. A cloud of vitriol hangs over an East Yorkshire village amid a 2-year campaign of anonymous poisonous pen letters that have caused some people who live there to move away. The personal, obscene and targeted letters have caused chaos in the quiet village of Shiptonthorpe.
Right.
Do you know where that is? It says East Yorkshire, so it must be
Yeah.
must be reasonably near Gaul or Hull.
Yeah.
Leaving residents upset, frightened and unable to know who they can trust. Ta-da! The drama.
That's scandalous. I love that.
Yeah.
Shiptonthorpe. Who would have thought?
There's no specific threats, but one included wishing cancer on a resident and another called another a cow. That's so retro.
And I feel like there's such a disparity between them two things.
Yeah. It is, I think that's what it is they always feel like a slight snapshot from the past, don't they? Local news stories. Yeah.
There's always stuff about food. We always really enjoy the ones where it'll be like, Leeds man outraged. His pasty didn't have any filling. And there'll be a picture of it. And we love that the local news has had to send a photographer, to get a picture of him with his pasty. And they've clearly gone, can you look outraged? And this is hours after he's been outraged. And there's these people who, they're not actors. And they're trying their best to sort of like method act being outraged at the pasty. And love it. Love it.
People would ring us up about, stuff that actually matters to them. Like there's a massive pothole in their street, and then the photographer would go round and they would always have to point at the pothole. Yeah. There's just the most amazing selection of people, photographs of people pointing at shit in local newspapers.
That's amazing. Was it a newspaper that you worked at?
Oh, all over. I worked at Leighton Buzzard, Milton Keynes, Cambridge for a long time. Yeah, all over. So many, just mad stories. I remember once around here, there was I really am going off on a tangent now. A friend of mine, a reporter, was sent out to a story that a woman was complaining. There's a village that's got a local scarecrow festival. And somebody had done a scarecrow, I think Freddie from, if memory serves, it was like a horror character. And she was complaining that it was frightening her children. And so the reporter goes out to check out this story. And when he sees the scarecrow, and then he goes to the woman's house and he's like, the thing I don't understand is you said your kids are in the garden and it scares them, but you can't actually see it from your garden. And she said, oh, but when they're on the trampoline, they can. It always sticks in my head, these idea of these children laughing at the bottom and they're just screaming at the top of the back.
Amazing.